Yeah, HMR here. And I'd like to give a response to a comment in this video that was left on the podcast I put up earlier. BPD relationships in search of emotional intimacy with a borderline. And the commenter said, so I think this is something a lot of people think, right, or are confused by. Commenter said, when you are in the relationship with a person with BPD, it feels like they are very attached. They seem at times unable to breathe, eat, sleep without you. Is this a false attachment? It feels like they are rooted into you. Oh, sorry, I lost my place. But maybe the roots are very shallow or wrapped around you rather than rooted in you. I think of my ex undiagnosed BPD's parents and their quote love unquote and how shallow it seemed during tough times. You could see how much resentment and grudge was intertwined with the parents' quote love unquote for their child. Yeah, and whenever we have to go quote love unquote, it means there wasn't any love or there wasn't healthy love. So when you're in the relationship with a person with BPD and it feels like they're very attached, what's key about that? Well, they're not. It can feel that way. And this is what I'm trying to talk about a lot more to hopefully make it more understandable and more relatable to you for your experience, right? It definitely feels like they're super attached, but they're not. And more to the point, people in relationships with those with BPD, and especially untreated, people with codependency, you are projecting out how you feel and thinking that they feel the same as you do, because they really, untreated especially, until unless well treated, significantly if not recovered. No, there is no attachment, as I've continued to say. So I'm going to move on to the next point here, which is, I just have to pull it up again. So that it feels like they're very attached. I hear people, that's your experience. It's exactly what a lot of people will say, like this commenter, it's what it feels like. I'm not disputing what it feels like for you at all. But they're not really attached. And then the commenter said they seem at times unable to breathe, eat, sleep without you. Is this a false attachment? Well, yes, it is all a false attachment. Because, it's not a false attachment, it's that unhealthy bonded kind of thing, which isn't a bond, which is not attachment. Okay. So what this commenter is describing is enmeshment, and the way that people with BPD are trying to seek identity through you, through other, don't know the boundary between self and other, and therefore, in a way, you represent who they become or think they are. It's through you. And I know I got to find a better way to express this probably. But so that's where there's like this merging, and very much it's enmeshment. It has a lot to do with the codependency within BPD, and of course all the other things to do with BPD, like fear of abandonment and rejection sensitivity and many other things. But it isn't attachment. But I do want to acknowledge it feels that way for a lot of people. And codependents also have to start to think about, and how much are you projecting on how attached you feel to how attached you believe that they feel also. Because you can't really know what they're feeling, right? That's kind of a theme for me in videos and podcasts and stuff lately. And then the commenter said it feels like they are rooted into you. Yes, feels like, again, I hear you. It's the experience, what it feels like, right? It just isn't what it really is, but it is what you're experiencing, or people have experienced. So it feels like they're rooted into you, but maybe the roots are very shallow. I like it. I like this part. The commenter sort of really gets there when they say, or wrapped around you rather than rooted in you. Yes, wrapped around you. Yes, like the way they seek identity through you so that they can be seen by you. This is why sometimes they can't eat, sleep, whatever, by themselves. Because when you go away, if it's for an hour, if it's for the working day, or you disagree with them, then that triggers them to fear of abandonment. This is all very unconscious on their part, all very sort of deep and yet nuanced. And then, so, yeah, they're I think that's a pretty good way to express it. They're wrapped around you. They're not rooted in you because there is no attachment. But they're wrapped around someone close or a partner because that identity seeking through you, that enmeshment of being like one in a way so that they can feel more, I don't want to say more real, but more like they have a sense of self, but they don't because they're getting it from you. And that's why they particularly get very easily and often triggered when you just, you're 10 minutes late coming home, you have to go out, you got to do this. Maybe you want to sit in a chair by yourself and not be like having them literally wrapped around you on the couch. All these things feel like you're pulling away. Feel like, and they don't even have that untreated. They won't even have that kind of awareness or think, oh, well, they're pulling away. No, it just becomes fear of abandonment. So this is enmeshment, which has to do with BPD, but also more to the point has to do with codependency. So the codependency within people with BPD is very much what this merging enmeshment is about, and it's like not so dissimilar for codependents, but that's just one of the core issues here. So yeah, wrapped around rather than rooted in you, because they can't be rooted in you. There's no way. They don't have a self to do that with. And if they did, they wouldn't be seeking that to root into you, so to speak. And they can't attach. And you said, I think of my BPD ex's parents. Well, see, they didn't love her, right? They were shallow. Sounds like they were emotionally unavailable. She experiences so many people who want to have BPD, like that and much more. But the point is, they seem shallow, and how shallow it seemed during tough times. It probably wasn't any deeper during easy times, And the commenter said you could see how much resentment and the grudge was intertwined with the parents' quote, love, unquote, for the child. So, and by the way, what you're describing there, which is, accurate, and like I could go like into a deeper explanation of, but the point is that the resentment for the parent or parents is not gonna, unless they get treatment, more often than not for untreated people with BPD, it's not gonna break the enmeshment and dependency, the codependency on the parents. So I've talked a bit about this before, but again, they're not attached in any healthy way to the parents, especially not to the mother if it's been a cluster B mother, and this is what happens in the majority of people with 87% who go on to be diagnosed with BPD, and what really happens in childhood with all that adverse experience. So, and also the thing I wanted to point out, that why I wanted to respond to this comment was that as a commenter says that you could see how much resentment and grudge that, his person or ex or partner, I'm not sure, with BPD, had intertwined with the parents. Well, this is just a sort of inkling. I mean, it's a good comment. It's insightful. But it's what I've been talking about in terms of why they don't trust, why they can't take in love, and why they don't attach to you. And things are the resentment and the grudge, which goes deeper too, than how you're describing it, but you're describing it well. The resentment and the grudge that are intertwined with the parents, with the codependency of the borderline, and other issues. All this comes together because of lack of separation, because people with BPD need treatment, and then this is what they are replicating in the repetition compulsion patterns in an unconscious way of relating to you They want to get intertwined. They need to be intertwined and enmeshed. There are some people with BPD that aren't like that. They could be the opposite of it. But many people are, the way the commenter is describing their person or the person they were with BPD or undiagnosed BPD. But those patterns, again, fuse with the borderline personality issues and with their codependency. So it's not about attachment. And then the other key thing here is the grudge and the resentment intertwined with the supposed seeming attachment, which is enmeshment with a parent. And it's that love-hate, right? It's the push-pull that began in infancy, if not early toddlerhood. And so this is also what is projected out by people with BPD in all relationship types, and especially with a significant other. So what the commenter described there, and as relates back to this person's parents, well, nothing is resolved from the childhood that this commenter's person with BPD had, or undiagnosed BPD. Nothing is resolved from the childhood. Nothing is resolved from the woundedness. Nothing is resolved from the adverse experience. And so that is what's going to all play out in the relationship, and probably has with you. And so the fact that people with codependency feel like they're so attached, remember, if they have to practically be sitting on you, they have to like eat, sleep, everything at the same time as you, have trouble with you even going to the bathroom or to work or leaving them, again, they're seeking identity through you. It's fragile. It doesn't really work. When you don't agree with them or you need something on your own, you want to be the person you are separately from them. They don't know that they're, quote, separate, unquote, from you. And so this is the enmeshing factor, along with some other factors, in BPD, untreated especially. And again, it's not healthy love. It's not attachment. And so how people with codependency experience it, they feel really attached. And then you just project that your real feeling of attachment and think that they feel the same way. Because again, this goes to where people with codependency are experiencing what they are, describe it the way they do, and feel like the person is attached because, oh, they're so needy. They need me for everything. They don't want me to go away. But see, that's not attachment, and that's not love. It's need, like I've been saying. And I'll continue to say to help people if it helps. People with BPD, so untreated especially, they confuse all their needs, which are aplenty and unsatiable, and you can never be good enough, and they can't be soothed because they can't soothe themselves because of lost self, no self. So this becomes the relational impossibility of how they're trying to seek identity and essentially not live with you, not attach to you, not love you, not trust you, but kind of get a sense of an existence of self, oh so fragilely, through you. So this is uber need of people with untreated BPD especially, who are very much coming from that unconscious replicating of repetition compulsions and adverse childhood experience, where, as I've done another video, they essentially and unconsciously, not on purpose, try to subsume you because they're trying to psychologically, emotionally be you, but not be you, but be you to be them, be you to find some sense of self. So I hope that was helpful. And they're just not attached. But I want to really acknowledge how people feel, how people experience. You experience what you're experiencing. You layer your meaning and narrative on top, of course, because it's your experience. So I would just suggest that this was an interesting comment to this podcast episode I did. But there isn't really emotional intimacy with a person with untreated BPD, and there isn't the attachment, and there isn't the love, but there is the enmeshment, and there is the seeking identity through you. And then in a way, I guess it's not a misnomer to say then they need you to mirror to them. They need you to mirror that they have a self, that you know, and it doesn't really work. It's a very fragile thing, and that's why, and I'll say it one more time, anytime that you turn away for a minute, or it can be this extreme, it's not always, turn away for a minute, have to go to the washroom, have to go to work, have to take a phone call, that you're just not in that really sort of when they're close, in that close place, in that enmesh place, to reflect back to them what they're seeking to get in a very subconscious way from you about, quote, self, which is the lost self, is the loss of self. So I hope that helps. It's, again, you know, what you experience is what you experience. But it isn't necessarily what's going on at all for the person with BPD. That's really what the videos wherein I talk about this in different ways. That's really what I'm trying to say. Because I would never say to you, oh, well, no, you're wrong about your experience. You're not. This is what you felt, the commenter felt. This is what the commenter then thought it meant. A little bit of projection in there about how you feel, and you think they feel like you feel, because they're trying to get in this symbiotic place with you to where there's no difference at all between you and them, because they don't understand that untreated, that lack of boundary between where they end and you begin, and how much they need, and what a codependents need that's not healthy for them. They need to be needed. You find self-worth out of being needed. So for a long time or a while in these relationships, it kind of seems like it's working, even when it gets chaotic and dramatic and your eggshell walking, it becomes a roller coaster ride, because every time you want to be away from them in one way or another, which is normal, they get triggered to fear of abandonment. And not all people with BPD are in this kind of presentation, but many are, and untreated, they don't know. How could they possibly know they have a lost self and that they're seeking identity through you? And then what you feel is, well, yeah, they're attached to me. This is great. Until it's not great when you want to do your own thing. So for some people with more severe codependency, this kind of together 24/7 kind of enmeshment and that, like, it can be, some codependents find that very comforting. Not all, some. Just as the person with BPD is finding it like to be about the closest they can get to feeling like they're existing through you, as was their experience in childhood of trying to exist through the parent. So if the mirroring is adequate, there can be some calm times. And the second that it isn't, then they're triggered and you're off to the races. And like I said in my last podcast episode that went up, they don't share objective reality outside of self. They have what they feel is their reality, and what you're trying to talk about, what you're experiencing with them one way or another, isn't their internal reality, so they can't appreciate the external reality untreated, and so there is no objective reality. But a great comment, well articulated, about your experience. And again, I want to say it once more to stress what people's experience is. I am never here to question or anything like that. I'm just trying to explain that what you're experiencing isn't what they're experiencing because you're experiencing it, right? And it's often like you're on two different planets emotionally. And that is what I think a lot of people with codependency get stuck chasing, besides a lot of other things, is trying to figure out what happened in the sense of, you know, with closeness, or like with a lot of people with codependency project a lot out, and it's trying to understand. See, you feel how you feel, you do, and you think they're with you, but they have a lot of stuff going on inside, even if they are close at a point in time with you. Or some are over clingy and over needy in a different way with untreated BPD. But the bottom line is that, so your experience and the experience of people with codependency, so many people are looking to try to figure out, well, how come it was like this and they seem so attached, and And the fact is, you're projecting your own feelings of attachment or love, etc. And so you can't really know. Again, it goes to this point I've been making a lot, is that people can't really know what's going on inside the person with BPD. Because what I'm here to say, and I will be saying it more, even and talking about it more, is that people with BPD, when they seem calm to you and everything seems okay for a while or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're suddenly out of pain. It doesn't mean that they suddenly have no anxiety or that they're just fine. It just doesn't mean that. The internal experience of BPD is just rarely really reflects, except for when they're really yelling, screaming, or they totally withdraw. It doesn't reflect their internal state or how lost they are or what that lack of self really means. So I hope that was helpful. Take care.